Hey class, Miss Hobbs here. Welcome back to another day full of learning something good and new. So, first things first, I have a question for us. What in the world is in my hands? It's money. Who loves money? Who would love to do something fun with this money? Who would love to spend it? Yeah, I know I can think of some fun ways to spend this money. I love money. Now I can think of some ways of spending my money on stuff I need and on stuff I want. What about you? Yeah, okay. Speaking of spending, speaking of money, we are going to learn today about a really, really cool thing. And that is expenses, okay? So expenses, just like my poster says, is the amount of money you spend on something, okay? So it's that money that you use. It's the amount of money you use to spend on something, on some kind of item. Maybe it is something you need, or maybe it's something you want. So to continue on, we are going to learn about two different kinds of expenses, two different ways we spend our money. So here we go. Okay, so for the very first expense that we're going to talk about is a fixed expense. So what in the world is a fixed expense? Well, according to my poster, fixed expenses are expenses where the amount stays the same. That means it does not change. So whatever you pay this month is going to be the same amount that you pay next month. Or the next time you have to make that same payment. They're expenses that do not change. So what are some examples of fixed expenses? Well, some examples are our house. Oh my goodness, think about the house that you live in. Maybe it's an apartment, or maybe it's a house in the country or a house in the city. I mean, regardless of the home you live in, whether you rent it or your family owns it, you pay a set amount of money every single month for it. I don't know if you knew that, but you do. So maybe your rent or your house payment is $500. Well, guess what? You best believe that next month it's also going to be $500. So that fixed expense does not change. What about, this is a good one. What about a TV remote? What do you think this means? Well, my TV payment. So I pulled my TV remote to talk about our TV payment. We have a TV payment that we pay our TV company every single month. And that number does not change. It never does. It's fixed. Okay, now for my last example, we all know what these are, right? A cell phone. It's an iPhone. What about a cell phone? So with a cell phone, I pay my cell phone provider. I'm with Verizon Wireless. I pay Verizon a set amount every single month. I have a cell phone bill and it never changes. It's the exact same. So it's fixed. Okay, so now that we've seen several different examples, what's a fixed expense? It is an expense where the amount stays the same. It never changes. Okay, expense number 2 is called a variable expense. Can you say that with me? Variable expenses. Now, what are those? Well, if you can read, they are expenses where the amount does change, where the amount changes. So it's not like fixed. It doesn't stay the same ever. It's always changing. So what are some examples of that? Well, I'm going to bring my car keys back out because what is that thing that you have to put inside your car to make sure it drives, to make sure it turns on and takes you where you need to go? Gas. Gas is always changing. So there's always different variables or different things in the world, like our oil and gas company, that causes gas to either rise or lower. Okay, so gas is always changing in prices. So I might get gas on a Monday and spend about $1.75 a gallon. But then the next day I might come back and it might be way cheaper or it might be more expensive. So that amount is always changing. Now, another example is, oh my goodness, our electric bill. So think about our houses. So our house payment stays the same and isn't a fixed expense. But what about the bills that we have to pay within our house payments and our house bills? Okay, the electric company, like every time you flip your light switches on and off, that is always changing. So if you flip those light switches on and off more one month and less the other, then your light bill, your electric bill is going to be different. So there's different variables or different factors that change how much you spend on electricity. What about groceries? Oh my goodness, who doesn't love cereal? Well, would you believe me if I told you that this box of cereal is sometimes more expensive than it was the last time I bought it? So depending on what's going on in our world, sometimes this cereal is more expensive or sometimes even cheaper, which is my favorite, than the last time I bought it. So cereal is a variable expense. It is always changing. Groceries, the food you buy. What about restaurants? When you go to a restaurant, those prices are changing too. Okay, the restaurant has the power to raise or lower their prices, which means you have to pay more to buy the food. Okay, and then my last example is clothing. So this is just a t-shirt that I bought the other day. And hey, it is always a different price. So sometimes you go in and buy t-shirts and they might be $10. But then you go in and buy another t-shirt or maybe some pants or maybe some shoes, and that's different. The price is always changing depending on where you buy the t-shirt, where you buy the clothes or the shoes, and what's going on in the world. Maybe it's more expensive, or maybe it's less expensive. Regardless, it's always changing and never stays the same.